Do it or leave it, Elena. Your sister's future matters more. Paying for both isn't fair. My father's words landed like bricks. My mother didn't even look up from her teacup. She added softly, though not kindly, college isn't for everyone. Maybe you'll learn a trade. Something practical. Your sister's the one worth investing in. They said it as though it were law, as though my dreams were disposable. I wanted to scream, to plead, to ask why fairness in this house always meant her gain and my loss. But I didn't. Hi, everyone. My name is Elena, and sometimes the greatest power you'll ever hold is silence. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't remind them of the grades I fought for, the scholarships I nearly earned, the nights I studied by candlelight when the power bill went unpaid. Instead, I simply nodded, excused myself from the table, and let my silence harden into stone. Because silence is memory, and memory can become a weapon. The weeks that followed felt endless. My sister pranced around with new textbooks, new clothes, a car Dad leased just to get her started. I kept my head down. Every insult, every smirk when she called me the dropout, I stored away. But behind that silence I worked. Odd jobs, double shifts, late nights at the library computer because I couldn't afford one of my own. I taught myself skills no one thought I'd need. And I promised myself, if they wouldn't pay for my education, I'd build one they couldn't take credit for. Years passed, and then, the twist they never saw coming. I'd built a business from nothing. My hands raw from work, my eyes red from sleepless nights. But my name, mine alone, carved into every contract. Success didn't come suddenly. It came slowly like dawn breaking. And when it rose, it shone on me, not them. Now, I stand in places they'll never be invited. I sign checks they'll never hold. And just when I thought the past was behind me, the phone rang. It was Dad. His voice was brittle, almost pleading. Elena, we need your help. Things have gone bad. Your mother and we need money. We thought maybe you could bail us out. And all I could hear, echoing through his words, was that one line from years ago. Do it or leave it. Your duty. The line crackled, carrying his voice, thinner, weaker than I remembered. Elena, it's serious. The mortgage is behind your mother's medical bills. We thought you'd understand. You're successful now. You owe us this. Oh, the word hit like a slap. I leaned against my desk, the city lights spilling through the glass windows of the office I built with my own hands. Behind me, awards gleamed on the wall. Proof of every sleepless night, every sacrifice. Proof that I had made it without them. Interesting choice of words, I said slowly. Oh, there was a pause, and then my mother's voice joined in, brittle but commanding. We raised you. We fed you. It's your duty now to take care of us. Don't you dare forget where you came from. Where I came from. The nights I went hungry so my sister could eat her second portion. The mornings I walked miles to school because the bus pass money mysteriously disappeared into her needs. The humiliation of being told in front of relatives that I wasn't worth the tuition. I swallowed the sharp memory and steadied my voice. I haven't forgotten. I remember everything. Dad's tone hardened. Then you'll help. Transfer the money, Elena. Do it for family. Family. They used that word like a chain, wrapping it around my neck and pulling tight every time they wanted something. But tonight the chain snapped. Funny, I whispered, because when I begged for college, when I asked for nothing more than a chance, you told me it wasn't fair to her, that it was my duty to step aside. You said, do it or leave it. So I left it. I left you. The silence on the line was thick, suffocating. Elena, Mom's voice cracked, a thin thread unraveling. You wouldn't abandon us now. Not after everything. I closed my eyes, breathing in the calm I'd earned. Around me, the office hummed with life. Employees whose paychecks I signed, whose families I supported. I had built a world where I was no longer invisible. And in that moment, their desperation wasn't a wound for me to fix. It was justice, circling back in quiet symmetry. I opened my eyes, my voice clear. You abandoned me first. Don't expect me to rescue you from the emptiness you created. And with that, I let the silence return. The kind of silence that finally belonged to me. The next call didn't come from my parents. It came from my sister. Her voice was dripping with that same superiority I remembered from childhood, though now it was cracked at the edges. Elena, they told me what's happening. You can't just stand by and watch them suffer. You're rich now. What's a few $100,000 to you? If you really are as successful as you claim, prove it. Help your family. Prove it. That word ignited something inside me. For years, I had lived in the shadow of her golden pedestal. The child who got the new shoes, the private tutors, the car at 16. While I was the one stitching together old textbooks and working part-time just to keep myself afloat. And now she wanted proof? I sat in my leather chair, staring out over the city skyline. My name, not hers, not theirs, was etched on the tower across the street. That was proof enough. Tell me, sister, I said calmly. How's that degree mom and dad paid for working out? How many companies have you built? How many people rely on your paycheck to feed their children? There was silence on the other end. She hadn't expected me to bite back. I continued, my voice steady, controlled. All these years, I was the nothing child, right? The one not worth investing in. And now that I've turned that nothing into everything, you want me to hand it over like it's yours by birthright. Her tone snapped, venomous. Don't be selfish. You think money makes you better than us? You think your success erases the fact that they raised you? I laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. Raised me? They raised you. They left me to raise myself. Every scrap of success I own is proof that I never needed them, and I certainly don't need you. Her anger boiled over. You'll regret this, Elena. One day you'll need us, and when that day comes, don't expect us to be there. I leaned back, the hum of my office filling the space her threat left empty. I've spent my whole life not having you there. Somehow I survived. In fact, I thrived. I ended the call before she could speak again, and for the first time in years I realized something. Their voices no longer had power. Their threats were echoes, and echoes can't touch the present. It didn't take long before their whispers turned into spectacle. I found out when a colleague forwarded me a post from a distant cousin's Facebook feed. There it was, plastered in bold letters. Our daughter, Elena, has turned her back on us. After everything we sacrificed, she refuses to help her sick mother and struggling father. Success has made her heartless. Beneath it were pictures of my parents, my mother in a hospital gown, my father sitting slumped on a porch chair. Both carefully staged, both dripping with pity. The comments poured in. Ungrateful child. Money changes people. Imagine abandoning your parents. My hands tightened around my phone, not in shame, but in disbelief at their audacity. The same people who left me invisible now painted me as the villain for refusing to fund the empire of neglect they had built. That evening, my phone buzzed again. It was Dad, his voice unusually calm. Elena, people are talking. You don't want your reputation destroyed, do you? A simple transfer, and all this goes away. There it was. Not just guilt now, blackmail. I walked into my boardroom, the city shimmering through the tall windows. My team's laughter echoed faintly down the hall. I thought about the years they tried to silence me, and how loud their desperation was now. You think I care what people online say? I replied, my tone low, measured. Let them talk. The truth will outlast their pity posts. And if my reputation is built on refusing to be exploited, so be it. He faltered, anger slipping through. We made you who you are. I cut him off. No, you made me who I had to escape from. There's a difference. I hung up before his rage could fester in my ear. For a moment, The weight of their smear campaign pressed against me. The accusations, the public shaming, the betrayal of my own blood. But then I remembered something vital. I had been branded worthless once, invisible once, and still I became undeniable. Their words now, they were smoke against stone, and stone does not break. The knock came late at night, heavy, urgent. When I opened the door, they were standing there, my parents. My mother's hair was neatly brushed, no trace of the sick woman from the hospital photo. My father's shoulders weren't slumped like the pity picture online. They were squared, jaw tight with anger. So it had all been theater. "Elena!" Mom started, her voice sweet but laced with demand. "We shouldn't have to beg. We're your parents. It's your duty to help us." That word again. Duty. They wielded it like a weapon. Dad stepped forward, his tone sharper. "We made sacrifices. Do you think food appeared on the table by itself? Do you think your clothes just fell from the sky? You owe us for everything you are." I let their words settle in the air, heavy and familiar. But this time, instead of shrinking, I stood taller. Behind me, my home glowed warm with the life I built. Shelves of books I bought myself, a kitchen stocked from my own earnings, walls painted in colors I chose. Sacrifices, I said slowly. "You mean the ones where she got the tuition and I got silence? Where she got the new car and I walked miles? Where you called my education a waste and told me to find a trade?" Mom's lips pressed thin. "We did what we thought was best." "No," I corrected. "You did what was easiest. You invested in one child and abandoned the other. And now, suddenly, the forgotten child is the one you need." Dad's face flushed red. "Ungrateful. All we're asking is for you to return the favor." I felt a calmness wash over me, the kind that comes not from anger, but clarity. "And I am returning the favor. You gave me nothing but neglect. Tonight I give you the same." Their eyes widened, stung. "I built this life from ashes you left me in," I continued, voice steady. "And you think you can knock on my door, demand I clean up your failures and call it family? No. Family is built on love, not leverage." For a moment, none of us spoke. Only the sound of my father's ragged breathing filled the hall. I stepped back, hand on the door. "You told me once, do it or leave it. Well, I left it, and I'm not coming back." The door clicked shut on their stunned faces, and for the first time, the silence felt like victory. It didn't end with the door. Of course it didn't. A week later, I received a letter, hand-delivered, stamped with a lawyer's seal. My parents were threatening legal action. Their claim? That my success was built on the foundation of their sacrifices, and therefore they were entitled to a share of my wealth. I almost laughed when I read it. Entitled. That word wrapped them like a cloak, heavy, suffocating, and blinding. I called the number listed. The lawyer on the other end hesitated when I introduced myself. "Ms. Elena, I apologize. They pressured me into drafting this. Truthfully, they have no legal standing. They just wanted to scare you. Scare me. Just like when they told me I'd fail without their help. Just like when they swore no one would believe in me. It was the same old trick. But I wasn't the same old Elena. That evening, I drafted a letter of my own. Not to them, but to the extended family, the same ones who saw their staged posts and whispered their judgments. I wrote the truth, not in anger, not in venom, but in detail. The nights they denied me tuition. The years they favored my sister while I clawed for scraps. The silence I endured while they laughed at my dreams. I ended with one line. Now they ask me to fix the very emptiness they created. I didn't need to post photos. I didn't need pity. The truth, spoken plainly, was sharper than any lie. The ripple was immediate. Cousins who once sided with them messaged me privately, ashamed. Aunts admitted they'd always known the imbalance. Even strangers who saw the post shared their own stories of being the forgotten child. And for once, it wasn't me under the microscope. It was them. The next day, my phone rang again. Dad's voice, frantic this time. Elena, take it down. You're humiliating us. People are talking. I closed my eyes, letting the satisfaction settle deep. So now you know how it feels. Before he could answer, I hung up. Because the truth wasn't just my defense anymore. It was my justice, and justice doesn't get deleted. The storm hit its peak 2 days later. I arrived at my office to find them waiting in the lobby. My parents, my sister trailing behind, arms crossed, eyes flashing like she was still the princess of a kingdom that had already crumbled. The receptionist glanced at me nervously. They refused to leave until they spoke to you. I should have been furious. Instead, I felt oddly calm, like watching a play I already knew the ending to. I gestured for them to follow me into a conference room. The glass walls reflected their figures back at them, smaller, weaker than they wanted to appear. Dad was the first to speak, pacing the room. Enough games, Elena. This business, this success, it's temporary, but family is forever. If you don't want to help us as parents, then think of your sister. She deserves security. Deserves. That word again. As though my existence was built solely to feed hers. My sister leaned forward, smug despite the circumstances. Sign over something. Even a portion. We can still make this right before it gets uglier. Her tone carried the same entitlement as when she used to mock my hand-me-down shoes while slipping into hers fresh from the box. I set a folder on the table. Their eyes followed it like starving dogs. Slowly, I slid the papers across. They rushed to open it, expecting a check, a deed, a rescue. But inside was something else entirely. Articles of incorporation. My foundation's charter. Newspaper clippings highlighting scholarships I'd already funded. Testimonies from families whose lives had been changed by the programs I'd built. Every page carried one name in bold print. Mine. This, I said, my voice steady, is where the money went. Not into your debts. Not into your schemes. But into futures. Futures for people who were told they didn't deserve one. People like me. Mom's face paled. Dad's fists clenched. My sister's smirk shattered into disbelief. You wasted it on strangers, she spat. I met her eyes unflinching. No, I invested it in legacies. Something you'll never understand, because you've spent your lives taking, not building. The weight of the papers crushed them more than any check ever could, because it wasn't just proof I had risen. It was proof they would never benefit from it. And in that moment, they realized the truth. They hadn't lost money. They had lost me forever. They sat frozen in that glass-walled room, their reflections staring back at them from every angle, a family portrait cracked beyond repair. My father finally broke the silence, his voice hollow. So this is it? You're cutting us off completely. I looked at him, at the man who once told me my education was worthless, who laughed while my sister was handed every opportunity. No, I said calmly. You cut me off years ago. Tonight, I'm just acknowledging it. My mother tried again, her tone softer, almost pleading. Elena, please, we're still your parents. Don't turn your back on us. We only wanted the best for you. A bitter smile tugged at my lips. No, you wanted the best for her. And you told me to accept less. Do it or leave it, remember? Well, I left it. And now you're standing here in the shadow of your own choices. My sister slammed the folder shut, her eyes blazing. You'll regret this. You think these people you're helping care about you? When the money's gone, they'll vanish, and you'll be alone. I leaned forward, my voice firm. I've known loneliness my whole life, thanks to you. But I'd rather stand alone with dignity than kneel beside you in chains. The words hung heavy in the air. Their power, the guilt, the manipulation, the entitlement dissolved like smoke. For the first time, they looked small. Not because I had made them small, but because the illusions they built around themselves had finally crumbled. I gathered the folder, sliding it back into my bag. You came here hoping to take something from me. but all you've left with is the truth. And the truth is simple. You no longer have any claim to me. Not my money, not my success, not my life. I stood, my heels clicking softly against the floor. At the doorway, I paused, turning back one last time. Remember this moment, I said, my voice quiet but sharp. The night you begged the daughter you abandoned. The night you realized I never needed saving. I was the salvation you threw away. Their faces were pale, eyes hollow, shoulders slumped. And I felt no anger, no grief, only release. I walked out into the hum of my office, the sound of people working, living, building, the family I chose. Behind me, the glass room stayed silent, holding the ghosts of parents who once believed I'd never rise. Ahead of me stretched a future untouched by them, a future that was mine.